You know when you look up on a beautiful, clear day and see those long, white lines that planes leave streaking across the sky? I'm sure you've wondered what they are. And in this explainer, we're going to break down the super simple science behind them. Yeah, we've all seen them. Sometimes they're just these thin little wisps that vanish almost as soon as they appear. But other times, they seem to hang around for hours, spreading out and getting all hazy. So what's the deal? Are they different things? Well, it turns out the explanation is all about some pretty straightforward science. Okay, so to really understand what these trails are, we first need to know what they're actually called. And you know what? The scientific name itself gives us a huge clue. They're called contrails, and that's just short for condensation trails. Honestly, that name is the key to the whole mystery. Think about it like this. It's just like when you can see your breath on a really cold day. A contrail is basically the same idea, a visible trail of condensation just left by an airplane. It's a really simple three-step process. First, a jet engine is pumping out this really hot, moist exhaust that's just full of water vapor. Step two, that hot, wet air immediately mixes with the extremely cold air of the upper atmosphere. And finally, step three, that water vapor instantly freezes into millions of tiny little ice crystals. And voila, that's the white line you see in the sky. And when I say cold, I mean really cold. For these contrails to even form, the temperature up there at cruising altitude, we're talking over 30,000 feet, it has to be at or below minus 40 degrees Celsius. That crazy cold temperature is the absolute key ingredient that flash freezes all that water vapor. Okay, so that explains what they are, but why do some of them vanish in just a few seconds while others seem to hang out all day? Well, the answer to that has everything to do with how much moisture or humidity is in the air way, way up there. It all comes down to one single variable, humidity. If the air at that altitude is super dry, those tiny ice crystals that make up the contrail will quickly turn right back into invisible water vapor. The science word is sublimation. And poof, the contrail is gone. But if the air is already really moist, those little ice crystals have nowhere to go, so they just stick around. The contrail can linger for hours and get spread out by the wind. And here's the really cool part. When a contrail lingers and spreads out like that, it has basically just become a man-made cloud. Seriously, it's made of the exact same stuff, tiny little ice crystals, as those thin, wispy cirrus clouds you see naturally at really high altitudes. Now, you really can't talk about these long-lasting contrails without addressing the whole chemtrail idea. Because they can look so different from the short ones, it's led to a lot of speculation. So let's take a quick look at what the scientific evidence actually shows. The question that always comes up is this. Could these lingering trails actually be something else? You know, something deliberately sprayed from the plane, what people often call chemtrails? Well, the answer from the scientific community is incredibly clear and completely unanimous. After tons of study by atmospheric scientists, space agencies, and aviation experts all over the world, there is simply zero scientific evidence to support the chemtrail theory. And here's why scientists are so certain. The makeup of contrails is really well understood. They've been analyzed countless times. They are overwhelmingly just made of ice crystals from frozen water vapor, along with some tiny trace amounts of the normal stuff you'd find in any engine's exhaust. And that's it, nothing more. So when you look up at the sky and see those lines, it really helps to bring it all back to the simple, evidence-based explanation. This quote just sums it up perfectly. What can sometimes seem all hidden or mysterious is actually just a beautiful, visible demonstration of basic physics happening tens of thousands of feet above our heads. So let's just remember the three key ingredients one last time. You got water vapor from the engine, you have extreme cold at a high altitude, and that instant freezing that creates visible ice crystals. That's it. That's the simple recipe for a contrail. And that really leads to a final thought, doesn't it? We took a common sight, something we see all the time, asked a simple question, and we found a clear scientific answer. It just makes you wonder, what other everyday mysteries are out there that are really just amazing science waiting to be explained?